Environmental Studies here at Mount Holyoke, and I want to thank you all for being here today. Some of you are Mount Holyoke and Five College people, students, faculty, and staff. Others of you are community neighbors who've come from next door or from the South Hadley Conservation Commission. Others of you have flown or driven really long distances. Some of the alumni of this program and Mount Holyoke College alums are here today with us. And some of you have come from across state, like people from the Clean Water Action who have contributed significantly to this program and making it happen. So I want to thank everybody and give you a hearty greetings to the Restoration Showcase. I just want to say briefly that I couldn't be more proud to introduce the students of this spring's Restoration Ecology course. This is a group of sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and they worked together to carry out the third phase of a restoration project designed to improve the health and beauty of Mount Holyoke College lakes and the watershed in this area. It's hard to believe now, at this point in the semester, that just a few months ago, just 12 meetings ago, many of them have never even heard of restoration ecology, never set foot in a wetland, never knowingly set foot in a restoration project. And now, each of these students, each one of them has developed expertise in an aspect of restoration ecology that's of particular interest to her. And they work together as a team to design what I think is a really spectacular restoration to improve the health of one particularly polluted stream on campus. This has involved extensive examination of the ecological, social, practical aspects of a real-world restoration project that has real-world consequences. And they succeeded. They have combined their skills and their newfound knowledge into a design that we plan to implement this summer. So I'll leave it to the students to describe their work for you. First, they're going to present a broad overview of the restoration project that they have planned, that they've designed. Immediately after which, we're all going to move into the Kennedy atrium just down the hall for a reception at which you can eat and drink and talk in more depth about each of their projects at the posters that interest you most. So thank you again for being here.
We are so happy to have this opportunity to share with you about the Restoration Ecology program and the work the students have been doing since the program began in 2013. I'm going to start by introducing you to restoration ecology and some of the theories and principles that are guiding the project we've been planning for the past 3 years. Then we are going to share the reasons we need to do restoration on campus and what our specific restoration plans are for this summer. We will also share about some of the other projects the Restoration Ecology program is doing. Restoration ecology has been taught at Mount Holyoke for 3 years, and the work leading up to this summer's restoration project has been carried out by the students pictured here, as well as the hardy group of summer researchers. Phase 1 of the program began in spring 2013, when the first restoration ecology class asked, what is the water quality of Mount Holyoke's campus streams and lakes? They analyzed water bodies on campus and found that part of the pollution in the campus lakes is due to excess nutrients entering Upper Lake from a tributary stream they named Project Stream. They also found that the site was heavily dominated by invasive vegetation. They then asked why, and part of what they realized was that this stream is incised and separated from its floodplain, and had a well-established seed bank for invasive vegetation, and proposed a wetland restoration project to address these issues. They divided into teams to research site history, analyze existing water quality, as well as collect new data on the proposed restoration site, research the possibility of wetland restoration as our potential solution, and plan future steps and outreach. They wrote a proposal for restoration projects and presented it to the South Hadley Conservation Commission. Phase 2 began in spring of 2014, and students studied the site to determine the current conditions. They set up a comprehensive monitoring strategy so that we can understand the site better, and so that we will be able to track changes in key variables at the site over time. They presented their monitoring proposals to the Conservation Commission and other interested stakeholders at the proposed restoration site. Phase 3 began this spring, and we built on the previous work, as well as introduced the education and outreach as a formal project goal. We worked in groups to design the wetland restoration project and broke up into collaborative groups to study what interested us, including what is restoration, what have we done and why, what are we planning, and what our long-term vision for restoration is at Mount Holyoke, all of which you will hear about shortly. But first, I'm sure you're wondering what restoration ecology is. Ecological restoration is an intentional activity that initiates or accelerates the recovery of an ecosystem with respect to its health, integrity, and sustainability. Restoration ecology is a scientific study of supporting the practice of ecological restoration. Now, as someone who's very interested in nonprofit work, I was very interested in studying the theories and philosophies that guide our approach to restoration. We've been using a process-based approach, which means that we don't focus on a specific species such as trout or a water bird, but focusing on the overall system and the ecosystem processes. We identified limiting factors or stressors to these ecosystems and strategized how we can set the system on a healthier trajectory, such as dominance by invasive species towards dominance by native species. Our goal is to restore this to a self-sustaining ecosystem. Our restoration ecology program is unique because we integrate the science, practice, and the social dimensions into our study, work, and our restoration goals. We are restoring our wetlands and applying the science to inform our restoration practice. We will in turn be able to use our restoration practice to inform the science of restoration. This is thanks to the experiments and studies we are doing on the site. Likewise, we study the social dimensions of restoration projects around the world. And the social dimensions are central to our work here on campus. The social dimensions of restoration are so important that we are actually setting an example for other projects in the future. In summary, the Restoration Ecology Program's overarching goals are to improve the health and beauty of Mount Holyoke's watershed, contribute to the science and practice of ecological restoration, involve students and community members in real-world projects with tangible impacts, as well as integrate the social dimensions of restoration ecology with the science and practice of ecological restoration. We are inspired by the eminent biologist and Pulitzer Prize-winning author, E.O. Wilson, who captured the thoughts of many when he wrote, "Here is the means to end the great extinction spasm. The next century will, I believe, be the era of restoration in ecology." Over the course of this semester, we realized that we are already well into this era of restoration.
I was impressed to learn this semester just how much ecological restoration is already taking place across the globe. Most people may not be aware of this, however, because within a few years, a successful restoration project often looks like any other self-sustaining natural ecosystem. To illustrate this, what history do these wetlands pictured here share? In fact, they have all been restored within the last 5 years. It's not just wetlands that are being restored. Restoration is being used to improve all types of ecosystems, including deserts, rainforests, coral reefs, coastal zones, rivers, and of course wetlands. While there are millions of restoration projects taking place all across the globe, they vary in many ways. In addition to the type of ecosystem, projects have different goals, such as restoring overall ecosystem processes, or restoring a species, such as a type of fish, or a specific resource, such as soil. Size ranges from small household projects to multi-state or multinational projects, for example, the Chesapeake Restoration Project. As you might expect, cost varies accordingly. Projects are implemented and carried out by all types of people and groups, including entire communities, specialized clubs, and governments. We are using studies and experiments at project sites to inform future restoration work. This is because while there are millions of projects costing billions of dollars taking place all across the globe, restoration is a very young field and there is still a lot to learn. The take-home messages I have to share is that restoration is everywhere and is not limited to any particular type of ecosystem, location on the map, restoration strategy, or group of organizers. To illustrate this, I took an in-depth look at 3 case studies that illustrate the different types of restoration. These are on my poster, but for now, you're probably wondering what restoration is taking place here in Massachusetts. This is a hard question to answer, because restoration is being done by so many different groups of people, there is no central recording of who is doing what. We do know, however, that there is a lot going on here in Massachusetts. For example, the State Division of Ecological Restoration has 60 priority projects taking place right now. In fact, there is even a restoration project taking place here on our campus.
We see that restoration is happening throughout the world, including right here on Mount Holyoke College's campus, where you see the red star. Project Stream runs parallel to the athletic fields and flows into Upper Lake. The stream has become incised, meaning that the water has cut into the riverbed and can no longer reach its historic floodplain. Over the past 3 years, students in the Restoration Ecology program have collected data to better understand the natural areas on campus, specifically Project Stream, and determined what factors are limiting ecosystem health and function. For example, we've all heard that Lower Lake looks unhealthy in the summer. But why? Well, like most of the globe, we have problems with invasive species and nutrient pollution. Katie will share the specific details of what we found, but in short, we see that invasive species have outcompeted almost all the native vegetation of the site, and nutrient levels of the water have been above EPA's standards for the past few years. These are serious problems everywhere. Over 1.7 million acres are being overtaken by invasive species, and over half of all bodies of water are being seriously affected by nutrient pollution. As an environmental studies major, I was really interested in looking at why we should consider these as problems. Invasive species are considered any organism that is not native to the ecosystem and negatively affects or aggressively outcompetes native species. They are a concern throughout the globe because they often negatively affect biodiversity and ecosystem functioning. For example, over 42% of all endangered species and threatened species are at risk because of invasives. They are able to colonize, reproduce, and spread rapidly, completely taking over a landscape and its resources of the area due to a lack of their native predators. These are photos of our site right now. As you can see, the landscape is dominated by invasive vegetation, primarily honeysuckle, Japanese knotweed, and multiflora rose, which can outcompete the native vegetation and manipulate the biogeochemical processes of the system. One of the most common environmental concerns worldwide is that of nutrient pollution in the aquatic systems. The excess of nutrients, mainly phosphorus and nitrogen, account for over 50% of damaged lakes and over 60% of damaged rivers in the U.S. Often we hear about water quality issues in the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico because of fertilizers, animal waste, and agricultural runoff polluting the waters downstream. Such scenarios are common throughout the world and are happening here on campus. In fact, excess nutrients, specifically in excess of nitrate, is the biggest water quality problem in this country and in most of the world. Nutrient pollution is extremely damaging to ecosystem functioning as well as to aquatic and terrestrial biodiversity. Nutrient pollution provides the perfect ingredients for algal blooms, which ultimately cause dead zones, like the ones we've been seeing in the Gulf. Dead zones are low oxygen areas in which little to no aquatic life is able to persist. Clearly, this takes a toll on both ecosystem and economic health. As you can see from the graph, nitrate inputs in blue have tripled in the past 30 years and are projected to continue to increase. So what can we do about nutrients in the system aside from trying to reduce the inputs? A strategy that is increasingly being employed is the restoration of wetlands. Wetlands are unique ecosystems because they are lands where water saturation is the dominant factor, determining the nature of the soil and the types of plant and animal communities. Their unique soils, water movement, and vegetation make them highly productive and diverse hotspots. Although wetlands cover less than 1% of the earth, they're responsible for over 40% of the world's ecosystem services, including water purification, flood abatement, long-term carbon storage, wildlife habitat, and recreation. The ecosystem services wetlands provide equal billions of dollars every year. However, over 50% of the Earth's wetlands have been lost in the past 200 years, primarily due to drainage for agriculture and development. In some U.S. states, we see up to 90% of wetlands lost. It is important to recognize the hundreds of millions of dollars spent every year to restore these valuable habitats because of their essential ecosystem services. In the wetland, nutrient-laden water is slowed down where suspended sediment is able to settle, interacting with rich organic soil and wetland plant roots. This interaction is where microbial processes essential for pollutant removal can take place. In this way, wetlands have the potential to remove up to 85% of nitrates in the water, all the while providing valuable habitat, recharging aquifers, abating floods, storing carbon, and offering research opportunities for Mount Holyoke college students.
We understand from Allie that nutrient pollution and invasive species are serious concerns in many parts of the globe. But what actually is the situation regarding these factors on our particular site? We have studied our proposed restoration site extensively, and given my interest in statistics, I chose to analyze the data that has been collected specifically on water quality and invasive plants, the issues that have concerned students the most. Water quality data has been collected from campus water bodies every 2 weeks since 2000. When this program started in 2013, we increased our sampling locations, particularly along Project Stream. First, I looked at the data for the concentration of nitrate in the water from many sampling sites across campus. This graph shows the concentration of nitrate in 3 of the primary water bodies on our campus. These include Upper Lake, Lower Lake, and Project Stream. The y-axis is the concentration of nitrate in the water, and the x-axis is the year that the data was collected. The nitrate concentration levels have continued to increase throughout the years, and consistently highest in Project Stream. This graph shows the recent mean concentrations of nitrate in 4 water bodies on campus. These include Project Stream, Stony Brook, Upper Lake, and Lower Lake. The y-axis is the concentration of nitrate in the water, and the x-axis is the water bodies in which the data was taken from. Averaging the past few years, nitrate concentration in Project Stream are 5 times the EPA recommended limits for such streams. Next, I looked at the data collected for the concentration of phosphate in the water from the same sampling sites across campus. This graph also shows the 3 primary water bodies on our campus. The y-axis is the concentration of phosphate in the water, and the x-axis is the years in which the data has been collected. Again, the concentration of phosphate had the highest levels in Project Stream. This graph shows the recent mean concentrations of phosphate in 4 water bodies on campus. The y-axis is the concentration of phosphate in the water, and the x-axis is the water bodies in which the data was taken from. Again, taking a closer look at Project Stream, the phosphate concentrations in Project Stream has been 1.5 times the EPA recommended limit. So such high concentrations of nitrogen and phosphorus entering the lakes from Project Stream contributes to downstream water quality problems in the campus lakes and beyond, including toxic algal blooms, low oxygen conditions, and generally poor lake health. Currently, Ecology uses bubblers in Lower Lake for oxygenation and treats with chemicals to reduce phosphorus in the water column and kill algae and weeds. This is likely to continue to be necessary until source of pollutants is dealt with. In addition to the nutrient pollution, our sites are heavily dominated by invasive species. Examples include European fly honeysuckle, Oriental bittersweet, winged burning bush, and jewelweed. Our goal is to put this plot on a trajectory of native species dominance. This is just some of the data that was collected from our site, but there's much more we are examining to understand Project Stream and to determine how it changes over time.
We are working to understand many key variables at our site, in addition to nutrients and vegetation. Knowing how these variables change over time will give us valuable insights into how ecosystems develop and how to improve future restoration projects. For example, by monitoring biological and chemical indicators of water quality at Project Stream and other water bodies on campus, we were able to conclude the Project Stream will benefit from restoration. Among other variables, we are currently monitoring soil properties and function, beyond the surface water, and wildlife at Project Stream. Although we measured many different physical, chemical, and biological properties of the soil at Project Stream and at our reference site, I chose to focus on soil organic matter. Soil organic matter refers to the organic substances, such as decomposing plant and animal matter, that can be found in soil. It is important to monitor because it is commonly considered an indicator of the overall health of a wetland because it is required for a number of wetland functions, such as vegetation growth and the removal of nitrate pollution by the process of denitrification. These functions often benefit from high amounts of soil organic matter. Soil organic matter also influences multiple key soil properties, including water holding capacity, as well as impacts the habitats and food chains that sustain invertebrates, fish, and microbes in the area. We also measured many different variables concerning ground and surface water, such as benthic macroinvertebrates. Benthic macroinvertebrates are important to monitor because they are a good long-term indicator of the overall condition at Project Stream, are an important source of food for other animals in the area, and impact the wetland's ability to act as fish and waterfowl breeding grounds. When it comes to wildlife in the area, we have been paying special attention to amphibians at Project Stream because they are good indicators for the health of wetland ecosystems. Amphibians are also good indicators of the biodiversity at Project Stream. We plan to continue monitoring many of these variables so that we can understand how the site changes over time after restoration. Also, Project Stream offers opportunities for many possible experiments to be conducted. For example, the soil amendment experiment proposed here shows the addition of various amounts of topsoil added to different replicated experimental plots. Experiments such as this one will allow us to answer questions concerning how different amounts of topsoil affect ecosystem development and functions in the area. This possibility of future experiments will enable Mount Holyoke students and the community to further learn about wetlands, restoration, and many other topics from the site in our own backyard.
Now that you've been informed about some of the issues on our site, you're probably wondering what we plan to do about it. To start, I would like to remind you of our three main project goals. The first is to put the site on a trajectory towards native species dominance. The second is to improve the water quality of our lakes and streams. And the third is to educate visitors to our site through our engaging design plan. Now I'd like to reorient you to where we're working exactly, which is on Mount Holyoke's campus right here, and that's the red star on the map. For those of you who are from out of the area, the red star on the map of Massachusetts represents where we are, and by zooming in a bit further, you can see exactly where we're working in the town of South Hadley, which is outlined in the red box in the pop-out. Many of you are familiar with Upper Lake and regularly walk past the tennis courts and the docks, which are right next to our project site. Here are the maps to orient you again, now above a rendering of our site as is. After you walk past the tennis courts and the docks, our project stream drains into Lower Lake there. Our site is actually right by the boathouse, and even if you're a frequent visitor to the lake, walking around the path, you may never have noticed the site due to the fact that it's almost entirely overgrown by invasive species and not visible at this point. Here are a few of the pictures of our site, which we took earlier this week, and they're right by the path that go around Upper Lake. Now that I've gotten you oriented to our site and what the conditions are, here's the site as it is now. We've surveyed and mapped the site and identified our project limits and boundaries. The orange dotted line represents the borders of our project area, and we'll be working within these borders. This table was built based on our restoration approach that Emily explained to you at the beginning of the presentation. Here you see how some of the issues at our site that you heard about earlier in the presentation will be addressed by our design plan. For example, to address the limiting factor that Project Stream is incised and disconnected from its floodplain, we will increase pools within the stream and expand the surrounding wetlands. But I'll go later
I'll go into this later in the presentation. Now, if you direct your attention to the green area above the stream, you'll be looking at the section of the project dedicated mainly to native species dominance. This area is where the majority of non-native species are located and where we'll be conducting removal and revegetation with natives. The addition of these new plants will enrich the surrounding soil, increase biodiversity, and ensure moisture retention. Additionally, we hope to be able to connect a set of experiments during the revegetation process in order to determine the most successful approach to management. And we hope to primarily rely on mechanical removal rather than chemical whenever possible. To give you an example of what invasive species removal can look like, here are a few images of the site before and then 2 years after treatment. The top left is before and the bottom right is 2 years later. And here's a picture of our class navigating the vegetation on the site earlier this week. It was fun. If you now direct your eyes to the green and blue area below the stream, you will see that we have plans to expand our current wetland by shaving the surface of the water table level, to the water table level, and then adding about a foot of conservation grade soil, which is organic matter, micro-rich, and free of invasive species. This process of lowering the surrounding ground level will allow for the stream to reconnect with its floodplain and create a space for the water to spread out in the event of a flood or storm. If you look at the stream itself, you will see that we are also inserting logs and perhaps some rocks across the stream. These are mechanisms to slow the velocity of the stream, create pools that are ideal niches for important species, and reduce the erosion of the stream banks. The previous slide highlighted a log vein, and the one that you're looking at on the map now is a rock vein. The good thing about log and rock veins is that they end up looking really natural, and here are a few examples of ones that our site could possibly look and end up looking like. Additionally, here are some images of restored wetlands to give you a real-life example of how our wetland could turn out. Each of these pictures was taken approximately 2 years after the project was completed, so as you can see, they're very natural, and you might have seen a restored wetland and not even have known it. Our final goal, which was developed by our current class, is focused on drawing people to the site in an engaging, inclusive, and educational manner. To do so, we have developed a proposal for our user interface, consisting of an ADA accessible boardwalk, which is the dark brown line right below the stream and meandering through the wetland, and a stone pathway loop, which is the lighter brown line above the stream. This loop will be equipped with signage, benches, and outdoor classrooms. The outdoor classrooms are the enlarged areas on the boardwalk where students can set up field equipment, painting easels, or circle up for activities. The signage would ideally be situated along the loop at various points of interest, telling the story of our site and connecting people with up-to-date and interpreted data on our website. As I mentioned before, this portion of the site is a proposal, and we're still lacking funding, but we are extremely hopeful for its completion, and we're working on it. This site will set Mount Holyoke College apart because it means that we'll have an on-campus field station. And our class sees the potential for a wet lab or a living building next door in the future. To help you with visualizing what I've been describing, here are a few images of what the signs could look like at our site. With these 6 signs placed at points of interest, as I mentioned, we hope to tell an engaging story that allows for people to learn and interact with our project. We look forward to using signs and the website to connect people with the research taking place on the wetland. For example, using links to the website, you would be able to see interpreted data on everything from climate change functions to water quality changes to the latest wildlife sightings that have been submitted by our visitors to the site. And here are a few images of potential boardwalk styles that our class also discussed in case this portion of the project does receive funding. Nothing's been decided yet, but we are weighing the pros and cons of all the different options. If the user interface piece of the project is funded, this illustration gives another perspective of what the site might look like. Here's a view from the ground at 2 of the cross-sections that we took while monitoring the site. The above is a view of the widest part of the site, and below is a view of the bridge. On the left is the boardwalk, and on the right is the crushed stone platform.
Given our design plan and that I'm a biology major, I was particularly interested in how the site will develop after restoration, such as what species will utilize the site and what ecosystem processes will change and how. If the project is permitted as we hope, much of the restoration work will begin this summer. I'm sure the neighbors in the audience will be wondering what to expect, and so I wanted to touch on this briefly. These pictures illustrate the view from the site to the neighboring houses, and from the houses to the site. As you can see, the site is beyond the view of the houses, even without much of the normal foliage. So if you had wanted to see the site, we encourage you to come check it out with our tour group, which Olivia will talk about later. It is also important to remember the previously shown images of a different restoration site at different time periods in order to keep in mind what the site will look like during and after construction. The neighbors are not the only one who might be affected by this restoration. We expect to see many animals return or integrate to the site very quickly after construction. For instance, we expect an increase in the abundance of macroinvertebrates, which, as mentioned, are important food sources for many species. In addition, macroinvertebrates are important because some of these species are sensitive to water quality, especially water oxygen content. We have been monitoring these species already, and we will continue monitoring them in order to help us understand the water condition based on the proportion of these sensitive species. Moreover, amphibian populations, particularly wetland and stream species, will recolonize almost immediately, and we will see high activity next spring. We also expect some reptiles to return to the area as well. Furthermore, we expect that birds will quickly recolonize the site. Now, these lists are not extensive and do not represent all the species that could possibly come or will come. This is just a rough estimation given my conversations with professionals and my research in the literature. As for our projections of long-term change, we expect that soil organic matter will increase slowly, as it takes many years for it to accumulate. Soil organic matter is considered an indicator of overall wetland health because it affects so many other factors that we will measure, and it contributes to a healthy wetland. This is because soil with more soil organic matter can hold more water and nutrients for microbes and plants. Due to the importance of soil organic matter, we plan to jumpstart soil-based ecosystem functions at our site by adding organic matter as a part of the restoration process. We expect that doing so will stimulate microbial-driven plant removal, pollutant removal, plant growth, and other key wetland features. Another important part of ecosystem function in wetland habitats is microbes, which are responsible for many valuable ecosystem functions, including nitrate removal and cycling, decomposition, carbon exchange, and other biogeochemical functions. These processes will positively respond to changes in site conditions, such as soil carbon and changes in site hydrology. One important genera of microbes to wetlands are protean bacteria, which function in nitrogen and other inorganic forms of cycling. Last, but not least, we expect plant biomass to come back rather quickly. We will attempt to set the site on a trajectory towards native species dominance by selective removal of invasive plants, which will cause a sharp decrease of these invasive species, as shown in red, and planting native species, which will cause a sharp increase in the abundance of native plants, as shown in green. We will monitor and maintain the site when it is necessary.
Mount Holyoke College encompasses a great diversity of natural habitat, including Stony Brook, the two lakes, and the forested area. I believe that our ecological restoration goals should not stop at Project Stream, and we should be attentive to other limitations on ecological functions on campus. I have come up with this map identifying some of those limitations illustrated by the red hatch marks. And as a student of both ecosystem science and engineering, I chose to focus on the hemlock woolly adelgid infestation in Prospect Hill trees and stormwater management. Mount Holyoke College owns around 278 acres of forested area, dominated by hemlock stands, which provide multiple ecosystem functions, including provision of habitat for wildlife. As with most eastern hemlocks, Prospect Hill hemlock trees are infested with woolly adelgid, which is an invasive insect that can kill hemlock trees within less than 10 years of infestation. The death of hemlock disrupts forest ecosystem functions due to the loss of canopy mass and habitat. It might also result in the decline of certain bird species, such as the black-throated green warblers.
Research is being done on rehabilitation techniques that include chemical and biological control, harvesting, or no action. But deciding what action to take is very controversial and depends on several factors. Further research can enlighten us and help us develop best management practices. Lower Lake suffers high nitrogen and phosphorus contamination from point and non-point source pollutions. The campus topography facilitates storm runoff to Middle and Lower Lake, carrying gasoline from vehicles and salt from the impervious pavements. It's important to take action and limit this problem to decrease water toxicity and cyanobacterial blooming. Stormwater runoff can be treated by increasing and enhancing storm drainage systems using best management practices that include porous pavements, vegetated rooftops, and as you see in this image, rain gardens. By implementing rain gardens alongside the roads, storm water would infiltrate into the ground before running into our waterways. Those are just ideas that can be developed at our campus field station, where many ecological research projects can take place and inform our understanding of ecosystem functions and change and future restoration projects.
Keeping in mind what my colleague Farah just spoke about the pollution levels in Upper and Lower Lake, the future management of Upper and Lower Lake first involves understanding what our lake system is comprised of. So one of the important things to note is that our lake system is not actually composed of natural lakes. It's composed of a series of reservoirs that were created after the construction of 3 dams throughout Mount Holyoke's history. So the first lake that we have here on campus is Upper Lake, which is outlined in red. The second is Middle Lake, which is again outlined in red. And then we have Lower Lake, and these were created by a series of three dams that are pointed to by the red arrows in this figure. So what happens if we do absolutely nothing and just let the lakes do what nature would tell them to do? Well, if we do nothing, the sediment over time will begin to build up and build up and build up. And that sediment is coming in from all of the different feeder streams into Upper Lake, and can also come from the death of weeds and other plant matter in the lake. So as the sediment continues to build up, the water is getting shallower. That's decreasing the water holding capacity of the lake, which increases the temperature of the lake and also reduces the amount of dissolved oxygen in the lake, which provides a really harsh habitat for fish on campus. And then over time, the lake will become so shallow that it will eventually succeed into a wet meadow and then a primary forest. So if we do nothing in a fairly short amount of time, we won't have lakes anymore. So why is that a problem? Why should we manage the lakes? So just to remind you, the dam pictured on the left, this is just an example of the dams have been here for a while. And then on the right, that's an example of one of the invasive species problems we had as a result of this contamination. So why should we manage the lakes? One of the great reasons that we want to do this is because of the social dimension. It's something that we really value in restoration ecology. And our students here at Mount Holyoke College really do value the lake systems. So here we have 3 photos of students enjoying the lakes throughout their time at Mount Holyoke College. So if we do want to keep the lakes and prevent the sediment buildup, one of the options for lake management is dredging. So what is dredging? Dredging is the mechanical removal of the sediment that's built up over time from the bottom of the lake, which allows the depth of the water to be increased. And because we're removing all of that polluted sediment, it allows the lakes to cool themselves and also to provide better habitat for fish and other animals, and that is why I believe we need to manage the lake system.
A large part of our conversation in class has been about community outreach and involvement. Mount Holyoke has been offering farmers market booth tours, and we are at the South Hadley Farmers Market Thursdays from 1 to 6 in June and July. We also have PAVE's restoration summer programs where students have done research on the current plot and will continue to monitor in the future. We have paid restoration-based internships beyond Mount Holyoke, where students have done research in Western Washington, Central New York, and Eastern Massachusetts. Students have presented at conferences and won prizes for their presentations. We have a free summer program for high school girls. Volunteers have also helped with the removal of invasive water chestnut on Upper Lake. And we collaborate with various other organizations to write grants to share lab resources and with other restoration practitioners in the field. Very excitingly, this is our third restoration showcase where we have built upon what previous years have done. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, where you can be continually updated throughout the summer. Another part of my program is that I wanted to gauge Mount Holyoke's understanding and knowledge of restoration in the lakes on campus. To do this, I created a survey which was distributed through email, flyers, and through social media. I received 244 responses from students, alum, faculty and staff, and community members from a variety of different majors. So what does this data tell us? It tells us that people use the lake for a variety of different things, including hiking and jogging, relaxing, and research. Therefore, it should come to no surprise that over 93% of people surveyed think that maintaining the health and beauty of the lakes is a priority for the college, and that it should be both administration and the students' responsibility for this maintenance. Very excitingly, respondents have similar goals to our restoration project, which include restoring ecological function, restoring native species, and providing educational opportunities. Respondents are eager to participate in restoration activities such as native species planting, site tours, and invasive species removal. These outreach efforts would be in addition to our outreach efforts we already have. Helping with invasive species removal and native species planting not only are beneficial to our site, but environmental volunteerism may also have positive impacts on human health.
As a psychology and biology double major, I was interested in examining how restoration projects could impact mental health. There wasn't a lot of research directly on this question, but the research that was done indicated that there is a positive benefit both physically and mentally for being in nature. Volunteering also improved physical and mental health. So returning to the original question, what if being involved in a restoration project helps? If being in a restoration project could have positive benefits, if we take both of the benefits of volunteerism and being in nature, then we can hypothesize that there would be an additional benefit to restoring a natural ecosystem. Our project could help to fill this gap in research. So what could this mean for you? By performing backyard restoration projects, you can help to gain these benefits.
So if restoration may improve mental health, what might be the potential for restoration as a teaching tool? I looked into restoration-based education, which is a type of environmental education where students actively participate in a restoration project. Many educators and restoration ecologists believe that this type of education can give students a feeling of accomplishment, hope for environmental change, most importantly, that the students have the ability to contribute positively to it, and a connection to their community, which is often termed sense of place in the research. There is quite a lot of research showing the benefits of place-based education and giving students positive experiences in nature, and that these things can contribute to empowered and knowledgeable citizens. In my research, I found diverse examples of restoration-based education programs across the country, including teacher training programs, summer camps, elementary school lesson planning, and even university programs like ours. So there are many ways that restoration is being incorporated into modern experiential education curriculum. But only a few programs have done any follow-up research on their students, so it's really hard to say what students are actually gaining from this type of education, and even harder to improve upon existing programs without this type of data. One example that I found of a restoration education program with follow-up research is a teacher training program at the University of Wisconsin at Madison's Arboretum.
They have actually done a lot of follow-up research on both teachers and students in their programs, and teachers that participated reported a positive change in school culture and felt an increased connection to their workplace. Students developed an increased sense of place and a positive connection to nature. Sense of place and connection to nature have both been found to increase feelings of agency and compassion for environmental issues. And more findings like these could help restoration education gain more ground in fields of experiential and environmental education. At Mount Holyoke, we have a free week-long summer program for high school girls from the area that teaches them restoration ecology. Last summer, the students learned to research the soil quality, water quality, and biotic life of Project Stream. This summer, the Scholars Program is going to continue because it was so successful last year, and it's an exciting opportunity for Mount Holyoke to contribute to the field of restoration education.
After considering the educational impact of restoration ecology on future generations, let's consider the impact it has to our society. In today's world, we often focus on how humans have only the power to degrade ecosystems. But the practice of restoration inherently implies that we also have the power to help heal those systems. By doing restoration, we reinforce the notion that we can work together to help take care of where we live and what we love. The Mount Holyoke College Restoration Ecology Program challenges students to expand their thinking in the science, practice, and social dimensions of restoration. Helping to research and design a real-world restoration project with real-world consequences offers Mount Holyoke students a unique experience working with an interdisciplinary and diverse team, communicating with stakeholders, collecting and analyzing data with real-world implications, and developing skills that will make them valuable contributors to other original research and real-world projects. As collaborators of this project, we have combined our different perspectives, ages, expertise, and backgrounds to come together to enact positive change to our environment, and right here on campus. I was specifically interested in the social dimensions of the project, in which I was curious about why students and community members should care and value this program. And to poke at this curiosity, I interviewed several students, current students and alums of the class, and asked them questions like what their specific role was on this project, the value, and if their project, and if it had a lasting impact on them. I captured the restoration site and Mount Holyoke campus through film and photographs and overlaid them with interviews. In a synopsis of the interviews, everyone agreed the Restoration Ecology Program provides a unique and much needed opportunity for learning about communicating and collaborating with others on a real world restoration project. And without further ado, we will complete this presentation with my part of the program. I'm not sure, Kate, do you want to hit the lights? That's perfect, Kate. And just, raise up your hand if you can't hear, okay?
This class is really important to me, I think, because I kind of came into environmental studies pretty late in the game. And all the other classes that I took kind of brought me down. It was a lot about global climate change and how it seemed like there was really no difference that we could make. And taking this class, it's like we're actually taking action. We're taking it into our hands. helping design it, plan it, and we get to see the actual effects on campus. So I think that that's the most important part for me and how it's affected me the most.
So I've spent a lot of time in classes thinking about ecology and community building and different sciences, all with a very academic, theoretical focus. And as I think about moving past college into the real world, it's kind of scary to think about all of this foundational sort of textbook knowledge I have and how it's going to work when I apply it. So it's really cool that this class has given me a chance to actually see how all of this academic background can be applied to a real world situation and have practice applying my knowledge. I've had this class where we all get to bring our different interests and skills and knowledge and background to a real project and work together to make that happen. It's also really amazing to see how just this group of students can have such a huge impact on the ecology and the community in our area. And that's one thing I've been studying a lot in relation to the project, is using restoration ecology to empower people. So that's been my favorite part of this class.
My name is Emily Donaldson, and this class is really valuable to me because as someone with a research background, this is the first time that we can apply it in a really tangible way. And as someone who's really hoping to move ahead after graduation in the environmental fields, I think that there's a lot of lessons that can be learned in terms of how much collaboration it takes, how much community support is required, and get to do that under the guidance of a really great professor like Kate.
My name's Isabel Arthen. I graduated in 2014 and I was in the first restoration ecology class. A lot of what we were doing was envisioning what both the site and the whole program could look like in the future. So we were obviously getting a lot of direction from Kate, because she came into it with all kinds of plans, but there was so much flexibility that it felt like it was really our project. There was lots of room for new ideas and new visions, and that was a really empowering feeling that you don't get from many classes. It was huge for me. It's beginning to look like Kate and the Restoration Ecology program may have just given me my future career. So having a field site on campus is something that many undergrads only experience when they study abroad. If I was a high school student trying to decide on colleges, I know that the Restoration Ecology field site would be a huge pull to Mount Holyoke. I guess one of the main reasons that I really value the program is that students leave restoration ecology with concrete tools that they can use to physically and tangibly make the world a better place. But what more can you ask from a class than that? I gained so much experience working on teams. Collaboration isn't always easy, and I came out of the Restoration Ecology program with a lot of exposure to both the difficulties and also the joys and improved results that come with teamwork, which is definitely something that has translated into my life post Mount Holyoke.
Group huddle. Huddle. Group huddle. And okay, first the hug. And then the huddle. Okay. To restoration. 1, 2, 3. Restoration.
Thanks everyone for being here. We would like to invite you now to our poster session in the Candide Atrium, where you can ask us questions on our project. Thank you.